If this video found you, you've recently had some sort of light bulb epiphany moment and clarity came rushing in. Suddenly, you saw through a lot of your own behavioral patterns as well as the patterns of other people, and a lot of things are just not cutting it anymore. I feel there's this energy of being tired with your own bad habits or stagnancy, as well as feeling a frustration with others who can't seem to pull themselves out of the same cycle. It's like this mirroring and triggering effect that we're sitting in at this time. And I feel like we've been here before. And so it's like, do I really have to hang out here if I already know the vibes? And the answer is no. Or maybe you feel called to be there, but you have to show up in a different way with new protections and boundaries in place. I feel like it's really obvious right now the people who are trying to deceive and become charlatans and sell snake oil. The phonies are like on a pedestal. Like we've created this kind of society where we're glorifying gimmicks and illusions. And I feel like the people who have been operating in that space, whether they're politicians, whether they're influencers, whether they're celebrities, whatever, people in your own life even, it just feels like there's this very strong clash right now between that kind of behavior and the altruistic approach to life, the wholesome approach to life. Does that mean it's perfect? No. But at least it's always attempting to live in truth as much as possible. And so we're coming upon this full moon in Pisces eclipse as I'm filming this, but whenever you find this message, it could be relevant. If you do happen to find this message when I post it, though, it will be happening on Friday, August 28th, and it's the final full moon in Pisces of this eclipse series. We still have one more on this axis, which will be coming up 6 months from now. But if you think back to September 2024, which is when the first eclipse in Pisces happened, you'll notice that there's some sort of full circle moment that's happening at this time. Now, this full circle can have a lot of positive blessings associated with it too. It's not just about going around and around in a loop and being triggered. There's also this duplicity that comes with Pisces, similar to Gemini or really any of the mutable signs, but I think Gemini and Pisces are the most duplicitous, of like feeling like there's this magnetism and energy of never missing what's meant for you and feeling so connected to fate in a really positive, synchronous manifestation kind of way. And then there's this other side of things of like feeling like you can't escape. I heard the generational curses or the generational cycles. And so it's like these things are coming to a head right now. And I think it's asking you underneath it all, what do you really believe in? Because think about it, we have all of the mutable signs except for Sagittarius occupied. We have this full moon in Pisces. We have this Virgo season that we're going into this week. This is the first week of Virgo season 2026. We have Uranus in Gemini, which is going to be there for the next 7 years. And the missing link of this is Sagittarius, which has to do with faith, belief, alignment, and core values. And I feel like when there's this confusion about where am I right now? Am I just perpetually stuck in limbo? Am I on this side or that side of things? It can show you how fluid that really actually is, depending on what you believe in and how you see yourself and what you believe to be true about the world. If you walk around and you think that this world is just a terrible place where there's just tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, you're going to live out that story, even if it's subconsciously. And I think right now there's something that's purifying with this full moon eclipse in Pisces. It's like We've been under a lot of fire energy, and we still have a lot of fire energy in the air with Jupiter and Leo. But there's also something about water really cleansing us of some of the ashes of this purification, because I feel like this summer has been purification by both water and fire, which are opposite elements. And that also ties into this like I'm getting crossfire, like a battle almost kind of energy, spiritual warfare, psychological warfare. And I just feel like this full moon is washing an old identity away. And more specifically, washing away subconscious. I also heard like super conscious, or like, I don't know, like extending beyond your own conscious experience into like collective consciousness. There's something about everything just getting a reboot at this time. And it doesn't mean that like there aren't familiar faces. Like, in fact, it is these full circle moments that feel very gratifying. And when you look around and it's like, it's always been you've always been by my side. And there's this renewal of relationships that are meant to strengthen. And any relationships that are not in alignment, that are causing friction, that are creating this wobbly energy, there's a very strong, like, I'm getting like a yanking energy of like bringing these two polar opposites away from each other so they don't continue the quantum entanglement, even if one day they are meant to come back together in the future. So if you are experiencing a painful separation at this time with anyone or anything that you're going through, I feel like it is a time of both heavy departures and new beginnings. And there's a lot of emotions that come with that. This is a highly nostalgic time. I think we're also feeling a little bit nostalgic, dare I say, for the Saturn and Neptune Pisces era. At least Neptune and Pisces era, because Neptune loves being in Pisces. And it's not that that era was perfect, but it does feel like we're at this place right now where we recognize that like we can't get back these past few years. Like these past few years were truly like the end of something, and we're now in the beginning of something else. But because of how the timing of this eclipse cycle has perpetuated between Pisces and Virgo, there's still some carryover just when you thought just when you thought you had wrapped that up, right? So don't be afraid of this time. Don't be afraid of some of these big emotions that could come up with all of the transitions going on. Embrace it, because it's in the emotions that you gather more data and information. It's not that emotions can never mislead us, because they certainly can. But I feel like the more that we go through this purification work and the more that we gain insight and reflect on things, it gives us this ability to feel our emotions with a layer of like criticism, or like a critical eye is what I heard. And not just taking them for face value, but at the same time being curious about what they are trying to communicate from our intuition. And so that's why people who are emotionally numb, or they're avoiding their feelings about things, their intuition suffers from that, right? You can only be in touch with your intuition as much as you're willing to face yourself and the emotions, both positive and negative. It's not that you are just the product of your emotions and that's all that you run off of, because that can also be very dangerous too. And so it just feels like right now, if you get what I'm talking about, you get it. Because I feel like you've been on a journey of making meaning and understanding of things in your life. And sometimes you've been curious as to why things have been put on hold, or it feels like they've been delayed, or it feels like you've been perpetually like going through the healing work. And I feel like something about right now is a turning point where you're always going to continue to heal and grow. But what you now see is that the next level of this ascension journey is action. It's putting things into motion. It's externalizing what needs to be published, I heard, for some of you guys. And if it's not a publication, what needs to be shown and demonstrated to the world. I feel like some of you guys have a really powerful message of getting a lot of throat chakra energy here, as well as maybe some attacks on your throat chakra, people having a vested interest in discouraging your message. And it doesn't always come from a place of like vengeance or mischief in a negative way. Like, it's not always like, I'm going to stop this person. It's sometimes your energy can shine such a strong light and a strong mirror to other people that it makes them scared what you're about to say, because they haven't gone through those same layers. And so it's not always that they're consciously thinking like, I'm going to stop this person because I don't like them. It's not always like that, but sometimes it can be. But sometimes it's more so just that they want to attack your opinions or your message or your belief system even, because it really triggers, I heard, a hole or a gap in their argument, in their narrative that they tell to themselves. So there's a lot of different like perspective things going on right now. Getting a lot of mirrored energy with this Pisces full moon, like being in a house of mirrors and not really knowing what's what, but then at the same time seeing everything. And I feel like what's curious about this time is that we're kind of dropped off in this place by eclipse season. And then we have Venus and Mars retrograde rolling in over the next few months to take us a level deeper. And I'm laughing when I say that because I know some of you guys are like, how much deeper does this get? But there is something different about this next layer. I heard for some of you guys, it's interesting because I feel like there's like two distinct groups. For some of you guys, this next level is actually going to be about you being able to stand on your own and not allowing anyone else's timeline or how they're moving affect your pacing and what feels right for you. And so that might cause you to get ahead of some people actually. And it might feel a little bit lonely because you're like, who's going to keep up with me now? But you know that you can't slow down to make other people comfortable. You know that you just have to keep following what's driving you right now. Because there's a pureness to this force that's driving you. If you found this video, I feel like not every single person in the world, I think that's true, but I feel like for the people who found this video, you've done the purification rituals, I heard. But I didn't mean that in like a spooky way, just like you've done the purification work, you know? So that's one group. The other group, I feel like you've actually already kind of been in that energy of like you've been kind of like a lone wolf for a while now. And not because you're antisocial or you don't have strong relationships in your life. It's not really giving that. It's more so that when it comes to a specific mission or purpose or project that you're working on, it feels like you've been doing a lot of organizing all by yourself and you haven't really had anyone to check in with, to, you know, bounce ideas off of, or even like straight up collaborate with. Like there's been a lot of inconsistency, and I heard comings and goings and fluctuations in your communities and in your connections. And so what I feel like this full moon is going to be about is you, I heard reuniting, but also making new connections. Like I heard that song, like, make new friends and keep the old. One is silver and the other's gold. And it's kind of this energy of opening yourself back up to people, but with this new lens of discernment where you know the limitations of certain people, so you're not going to approach them in the same way anymore. And then likewise, you also see that there's a readiness or a ripeness in other connections for new, I heard new responsibilities or new, just like new things for you guys to work on, for that to be introduced. And so it's exciting for sure. And I think there's still a little bit of a nervousness here where it's like, I just hope I don't drop the ball. I heard someone say, like, I just hope I don't mess this up. because I feel like because the whole reason why you got into that lone wolf position in the first place was because there was some karmic smackdowns going on. And maybe you messed things up and other people messed things up too, but it was this feeling of perpetual failure, I heard, that you were going through when it came to relationships. And this might actually be specifically for a love message. Like, you felt like maybe other types of relationships in your life have always been pretty decent or, great actually. But when it came to love and romance, that was the one area that you could never quite figure out. And it always just felt like you would attract the right person until they weren't the right person anymore. And I feel like when you really think about it, ultimately this happened because you didn't really understand yourself fully. I mean, you might have had bits and pieces of the puzzle, but you still didn't see yourself. And so you attracted a partner that reflected that lack of self-knowing. It's like, how are you going to know the right person for you if you don't know you? And so that's where I feel like a lot of you guys had, and maybe in the past 2 years, like this timeline of the eclipses could be significant, where you, especially with the Virgo piece of it too, because I think Virgo can have a lot to do with like kind of preparing oneself for more unions or working partnerships and agreements, with it being the sign that precedes Libra. It just feels like there's been even like a celibacy journey some of you guys could have been on, or like conserving your energy, like just spending more time alone or at home in more like quietude. I feel like you guys have always kept busy and working on things, but you shifted in overextending yourself, is what I heard. Like anything that felt like overextending and it didn't feel like it was really feeding back into you, I think those things were like snip, snip the past 2 years. And like you've had some opportunities to do that pruning yourself, but then there's been other times where the universe have sent you storms to force you to that point where you're like, okay, this has to end. Goodbye. And I feel like in the past, this tumultuous energy, it would deeply affect you in the sense that sometimes it would make you second guess your identity and who you are. Because it was almost like you were believing the version of yourself that you saw through the eyes of someone else and their opinions of you. And I feel like you've had to be in this journey so that you can see yourself with fresh eyes. And it's like purifying that aura, right? And that helps you to purify your relationship with God and understand why God made you the way that he made you. Because I feel like when you were listening to all these other opinions that were not really in alignment with you, if you're being honest, it was just like a lot of negativity. And even if that negativity wasn't always directed toward you, and there was also a lot of praise directed at you, there was something underlying about it that was a very like traumatized, jaded, and wounded way of looking at things. And I feel like being around this energy, you never fully believed in it, but you kind of started to adopt some of the practices or the internalized behaviors. I don't know if this is making sense, but I feel like it is if you found this video. But yeah, I just feel like there's something so obvious in the air now where it's like I would never even end up in that kind of situation again because of the healing I've done. And it's almost like, not that you're laughing at your pain, but it's almost laughable the fact that these things even affected you at one point, because you know, like you have faith in so much greater than what a lot of people can see, especially people who are very stuck in the conditioning. And there is kind of this like great awakening, like mass enlightenment return to collective consciousness moment that's happening right now. I feel like especially under this full moon, I mean, Pisces has everything to do with the collective. And that feeling that everything is connected, even if we don't see how, even if we don't see exactly where the web of this connections, like how exactly it's mapped out, it's there. And these modern technologies we have, such as the internet and now artificial intelligence, they are all just kind of like human made inventions of what collective consciousness really is. And I feel that there's a whole area of our minds that we don't tap into and that we learn to shut down and abandon in early childhood. And that's why we all kind of have this collective wound, I feel like right now. It's like the wound of forgetting your connection to God, forgetting your connection to your soul. That's why when people talk about inner child work, they're really talking about getting back into your soul. Yeah, and soul is such a relevant word, not just the English word soul, but also the Spanish or Portuguese word soul, meaning sun, Leo energy, right? We're in this transition now, going from Leo into Virgo. And Leo has been a huge deal this month with the new moon eclipse, which was the first new moon, 222, when I said that. I've also, just side note, I've been seeing 222 everywhere lately. I don't know about you guys, but 222 has been everywhere, so that could be confirmation. But yeah, this soulful energy, this Leo energy, it's reminded you where your heart lies. So it could have been reminding you of not just the love that you have for someone else or something else, but I'm hearing The Greatest Love of All by Whitney Houston, like being reminded that the greatest love of all has been within you this whole time. And it's a part of you, but it also transcends just you. It comes from God, and love is the language of the collective consciousness. So we can sit here all day and talk about, metaphysics and the human mind's ability to tap in and, remote viewing and channeling and astral traveling. And we could go down the list, right? We could make a whole podcast series just about that. But what's coming through as the most important thing for us to talk about right now in this message is love, is the language of love. And I think this really has to do with Piscean energy too. Like that quality of unconditional love, heavenly love, divine virtue type of love. And it's a very fine line sometimes with this sort of spiritual stuff and then that love becoming tainted by an energy that's wearing some sort of deceptive mask, because that's the other side of Pisces, right? So I feel like we're walking this very kind of like almost like a tightrope energy. It feels a little scary because it's like one false move and this love could, or at least that's the fear. It feels like you're walking a tightrope, but you're really just walking a fine line. So if you veer off the fine line, you can get right back on the other side. It's okay, right? You're not going to fall off eternally and be damned. Like, you're going to be okay even if you make a mistake. So I feel like someone had to hear that. Like, it's okay if this doesn't go your way right away. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means that everything is catching up at this time. There's a huge backlog of emotions. And I also heard fated events, fated encounters that have been stored for this moment. A lot of red string theory coming through with this. So just keep speaking that language of love, because it can be tempting to get into this like anxiety narrative where it's like, well, I love myself so much that I'm not gonna give my time and energy to this and that anymore. And it's like, yes, but also no. In the sense that, yes, protect your energy. Don't just overextend, like I was saying. But also, when you do make those pivots or choices or, You update the boundaries. Do it from a place of love. Because sometimes we do these things as a way of like punishing, whether it be punishing ourselves or others, and we don't realize it. And sometimes it's not a matter of, I need more boundaries and discipline and all this like hardo kind of stuff in my life. Sometimes it's a matter of, I need more love. That love doesn't make me weak, it makes me strong. And the more that we speak this language of love with each other, even when that love looks like tough love, it's still love, and it's still healing, and it's still facilitating our collective evolution. That's the message, you guys. This Pisces full moon is going to be loaded with a lot of downloads, so just get ready, okay? We're still very much in the fog. And there's no rush right now to squint through it and try to see exactly what's going to happen next or what the answer is. Because that part of it, I heard, is in God's hands. And what God is asking you right now is to exercise your free will and take action where you know you are being called to take action. And don't look back. Go for it. And take in your heart the past and everything you've gone through, but don't look back like in Sodom and Gomorrah. You know? Don't be nostalgic for that destructive energy that was once a part of your life. Just because it feels familiar doesn't mean that it is helping you or consoling you. To be continued. Okay.